Welcome to the Michael Ouzas podcast. Today we welcome Sam Hewit. Sam is a managing broker, director of Realtor Development. You've been doing it for almost 12 years. Before that, you traded in real estate for almost 8 or over 8 years. You are part of Royal LePage Signature, which is the brokerage that I'm with, and you're in charge of over 1,500 agents. I'm super pumped to have you on the podcast. Thanks for being my first in-person guest.
Oh my gosh, thanks so much for having me as your first in-person guest. It's my honor.
This is exciting. So let's start at the beginning. Who is Sam Hewit? How'd you get into real estate and how'd you get to where we are today?
Good question. I started way back in the day when I was much younger. I actually answered phones when I was in university. Like I was a receptionist. I answered calls and booked showings and talked to the realtors. This was, going on 22 years ago now. So the business was so different than it is today. And I think a lot of realtors that you probably know, you look around and you think I don't know, they don't seem that much smarter than I am. And they don't seem like they have that many more skills that I have. So I could probably do it too. So I got my license. I was 21 and I started working for a top team in the brokerage I was with at the time. I became an assistant and I learned a lot. I was there for 18 months and just really got a backhand, in the weeds experience of what it was like to be a realtor. You learn a little when you're answering phones, but not like when you're working alongside a top selling realtor. And so I learned a lot from her. And then I went out on my own when I was barely 22. I was the youngest person in the office by decades. And it was a very, very different business at that point in time. I sold real estate for 8 years, grew a team, did really well, I think, relative to any metric you're looking to measure against. And then, at a certain point, I'm sure we'll talk about this today. This is a very difficult business in the sense that it really is all or nothing. You have to be all in. And at a certain point in time, I just lost a bit of my zest for the go and the, really being out there hunting. And so I went into our CEO at the time and I said, I think I'm going to go do something else. And he was like, what? What are you going to do? This is all you've done. So he said, well, if I were to ask you, if you'd want to stay in this space, in the brokerage space, what would you do? And I said, well, I really love the teaching aspect of the business and I love helping new agents. And anyhow, he helped me, kind of craft this manifesto that we still use today of these different, buckets or levels we use to, form our coaching philosophy. And so that's what I've been sort of doing ever since. So 12 years, the company looks really different than it did when I started, of course. The industry looks very different. But I'm really lucky. I feel really grateful to have a job that I love and I get to work with great people. And yeah, it's
awesome.
Pretty fun.
That's a lot. We got to unpack all of this because I think there's so many angles we can go at. What did that look like when you joined the team and then versus the team aspect then going on your own?
Yes. Yeah. So when I went on the team, I really wanted a little bit more support because I didn't really know exactly what I was doing clearly. And I was so young that it was none of my friends, all of my friends were still in university at that point in time. So the idea of building a business was just really overwhelming. And then when I hit the point that I realized I wanted to go onto the sales side, I approached my team leader first, and she wasn't interested in the idea of us working together in a team capacity. She really just wanted me as, an administrator, which is, I respected that for sure. And so that was the point at which I decided, I'm just going to go out on my own.
How did you feel when you went on your own?
Terrified. Yeah, terrified. Totally terrified. I was very lucky when I started. I had really good mentorship. Again, the business looked so different back then that there wasn't, sort of the level of training there's available now. And so it definitely in the beginning felt a little bit floundery. You definitely felt I remember waking up and thinking, what am I supposed to be doing every day? Because when you're used to having a boss and, you talk about this with hockey, your whole life was scheduled. When that disappears, you're sort of left with this feeling of what am I supposed to be doing right now? But I was really lucky. I had great mentors and I had great, women and men that came before me that gave me opportunities when I was getting started and, gave me open house opportunities and gave me lease clients to work with and really sort of helped me kind of get going. And that was a bit of the start. And then the real pivot in my career is I ended up moving out of my parents' house downtown. And that was kind of really the crux of where I started. I think I was 23 and no one expects, someone in that age that long ago to be living alone. And so people just assumed I was older and had a lot more experience than I did. And that really kind of got my foothold into that building. And I knew a lot of people and I started getting listings out of there. And that really kind of springboarded my career.
Amazing. And then you took that solo career, you built your own team.
I did.
And
Yeah, I did.
so what did that look like? And I also want to unpack a little bit about a new agent coming into the business right
Yes.
now and how it's different than it was then, and your journey on leaving the team and then going into that.
Yeah. I think, for me, you hit a point in your career, and we talk about this with your career, Mike, where you kind of hit this stage where you sort of have to grow. Not that you have to build a team, but you have to figure out how to scale because you eventually run out of time. And so for me, I hit that point. I ran out of time. I needed extra hands. I needed more bodies. And so the team really was sort of built out of necessity, not necessarily out of luxury, which is sort of how I teach it today and what I sort of walk agents through this concept of. And so for me, it really was, I hit my max, and if I was going to keep growing, I needed more help. I think today for agents and being on teams, I think that it's a great opportunity if you find the right fit. I think culturally finding the right fit for yourself, whether that's at the brokerage you're with or whether that's the team you're on, is the number one most important thing. They've got to have the same values as you. They have to have, if you've got a growth mindset, they've got to have a growth mindset. You really have to align in that capacity. But I think as a new agent, the whole goal of this business is to build it. You've got to build your list of, your names. You got to build your contacts. You have to, educate your friends and family of why you would be a great realtor for them. And so you have to do that at some point in time. So whether you do that on day one, or whether you do it on day 300 after you've left a team, you can't skip over that step. And so I usually counsel new agents, like, teams aren't a bad idea, but you just have to think about this idea. At some point, you've got to build it. So when do you want to do that? What does that look like given your scenario?
Yeah, that's amazing. And then what was your first hire? So when you started your team, who was the first person that you said, I need this help?
Yes. So my first hire was a part-time administrator. She, I stole her from the front desk. Don't tell anybody. No, I'm kidding. I had actually placed her at our front desk at the brokerage. And then she came to me and went to our CEO and said, I really want to do something else. And so I said to our CEO, like, I'll take her back. Like, she kind of came here with me, so I'll take her back with me. And so she was my first hire. And she, really, if you're going to grow, I think in any industry, any business, any capacity, you need to first have the system. And so she was sort of my first foray into this concept of like taking everything out of my brain and putting it onto paper.
So she was an administrator?
Yes.
So, okay, yeah.
Just straight administration,
yeah.
Loading listings, typing paperwork, organizing client information, all that sort of stuff. And she was instrumental. I find from a capacity perspective, that gives you, the realtor, more time to do the face-to-face, voice-to-voice interactions, which is really why we get into the business. We like people, and that's really what we like to do. My second hire from there was a buyer's agent. So someone that could kind of run with those buyers and allow me to sort of be strategic more on the listing side of the business.
It makes a lot of sense because once you start offloading, the paperwork side, the back end stuff, then you're more client facing, and then you can work with more clients, and then you can get, it's like the cycle that can keep rolling, right?
Yeah.
So as you kept growing, then you hit your point where you wanted to get into coaching. And I want to talk about coaching. And for those that don't know, or maybe if they've listened to this long enough now, Sam coaches me all the time, and I'm probably super annoying, and I ask a ton of questions.
Not at all. You're the most coachable.
Well, I don't know if that's true, but anyway, when you made that decision to coaching, what was that like for you? Like, now you went from an agent who's done it very successfully, you built a team, you've done what most agents aspire to do over the time, I would imagine. Mm-hmm. In hockey, we go from, I know a lot of players who are awesome players who turn into amazing coaches. Mm-hmm. And it's like, typically when that happens, you're kind of at the end of your career. Yeah. And you decided to do it while you were still flourishing as an agent. Mm-hmm. So I'd like to hear your perspective on becoming a coach. What was that first year like as a coach? Now you go from, being a colleague of a lot of agents to their coach, and your philosophy on coaching.
Yeah, those are big questions. I think, for me, first of all, when I started coaching, our business looked very different. We didn't have 1,500 salespeople. The industry was so different 12 years ago. Doesn't sound like a long time, but really it is, right? I mean, Facebook's only
12 years old.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So, I mean, the business, close to 20 now, but the business is just very different. So at the time when I started coaching, we started with our very first program, which was our new agent training program. If you can believe it, at the time, there wasn't really a new agent training program. You got out of getting your license out of the licensing program, and you're like, so how does this work?
Okay.
So that was really our first foray into the conversation. Now that you have your license, what should you be doing? And that was the group I spent the most time with from a coaching perspective. Now, our business has evolved in such a way that I spend more of my time with agents that are getting past the new stage. And I spend more of my time kind of getting people from the mid group up to the upper group, which is what we've spent so much time with you, trying to get you to that, top level. And you've done it in a tremendously short amount of time. You've been one of my most successful coaching students. I think that in the beginning, what I like to think about from a philosophy perspective is I actually think it's an honor to be given the chance to coach somebody. I think the coaching relationship is really just based on trust. You, as the student, need to trust that I know how to get you where you want to go. And I don't really take that lightly. Like it really is something that's built over time. And I think what we've really been successful with as an organization is being able to say to people, I know the path. I took it myself. I walked it. We've really spent time and kind of laid out the journey of what it looks like. So when you come in as a brand new agent, and I remember having this discussion with you, you said to me, just tell me how to get there. And I was like, no problem. Here's how you get there. And you do the work. I stand behind you and I cheer.
How do you approach that differently with different agents? Like, you have to initiate trust, whatever that looks like for every person individually. You have 1,500 agents.
But for us, we've sort of bucketed, our programs based on production. If you're a new agent doing 3 deals a year, your needs from a learning perspective are very different than someone who has a team of 7 people. And so we learned early on when I joined the team that you can't offer a one-size-fits-all approach to learning and to coaching. You have to figure out where people are on their path and you coach to that level. And so from an overall kind of how do you take care of 1,500 people, I sort of have parameters around, if you come in and see me and you say, okay, this is where I am and I want to get to here, I know based on my experience and based on our philosophy and based on our program that you're kind of in bucket 3. And in bucket 3, there's characteristics that you have and, deliverables I need you to get to and programs I want you to take that I know will get you into that next bucket. You, because of your background, are incredibly coachable. I mean, I say to you, go do this. And you're like, yep, doing it. Not everyone's like that. Some people are like, well, is that going to work? I don't know. I heard this and so-and-so told me that. And sometimes it takes time to build that trust and build that relationship depending on who the person is.
So on that front, one thing with Signature is the culture here. And I do find we do have an amazing culture. And it's one of the reasons why I decided on this brokerage after interviewing half dozen or however many it was. The company's grown significantly since. How do you create that and maintain the culture where if I'm one agent, how do I feel like I'm still getting amazing attention out of 1,500?
Yeah, it's a big question. It's a big question. It's one I think about every day. I mean, I think, first of all, I think culture really starts from the top, right? Leadership starts from the top. And so, we as a group collectively, we're not a do as I say, not as I do organization, right? I work really hard. I put a lot of time into our people. I really take this business very seriously and I take the opportunity very seriously. So from a culture perspective, we're not having 3 martini lunches or, playing ping pong on Fridays at 4:00. We have lots of fun too, but there really is an environment that like, we're here to work and we want to get better. I think we also build this idea of like, we believe there's abundance. There's not, you don't need to hide your secrets about how you're growing your business because you're scared someone's going to take your idea. Here we've built this culture where we're able to say, look, so-and-so did this and they've come on our show or our podcast to talk about what they're doing well. And you take the idea and you implement it a little bit differently and you go back to them and you say, hey, I took your idea and I did this and it works so well. And now the person whose idea it was originally is like, that's amazing. Thank you. Now I can do it better too. And I think we really believe that there is enough for everybody. And we believe that, the ideas are there for everybody to use. And it's a safe space. And I think as a leader, I've really tried to craft this philosophy that you can come in and chat, you can come in and talk. And I don't know if that's because I lead with vulnerability and I, share my own story with folks, or if that's, again, just because of the people that we have around us. And, we attract like-minded individuals who believe in what we're building. And so they tell their friends, and, people want to be around people they like. And so we've been able to kind of develop that. But I think really from an overall, leadership perspective, we really believe in what it is we're doing, and people feel that. They feel it. They know you're not in it for a buck. They know you're not a phony. They know you're not saying, well, you should do this, but I'm not going to do. We're just not like that.
Like, I know coming to the office, and I try to make a point to come every day because I feel like I just like being around everybody. And like, there's so many great agents and great people, and I'm always learning, and I ask questions, and I probably annoy a lot of them, but I want to learn. And when you're in that atmosphere, you can't help but get better, in my opinion, because you're around excellence every single day. Even as a new agent coming in, and I started a bit later in my life as an agent, but when you start there, it's like, okay, like, to have a really top level agent say, hey, do leases. There's nothing wrong with them. You could do them. Because some people shun on them, or they don't want to do them. But then you have people who have been there and be like, do them. Learn the buildings, learn the lock boxes, just learn how to speak to clients and get experience and the paperwork and all that stuff. It really helps you develop, and it feels like, okay, I'm going to do this because that person did that. And they're 7 years down the road, and I'm going to, I want to be like them eventually. And when it comes to when you create these programs and these platforms and you bring in amazing speakers, like, where does it come? We're like, okay, we need to get this person at this time and implement them into what we want to teach our coaches. And I know you guys adapt as what's going on in the market. So where does that mentality come from?
I think the minute you think that you know everything, you're sunk. You're BlackBerry, right? Like, I think the minute you're like, we've arrived and we can take our foot off the gas, it's really kind of over for you. So I think you have to have a learning mindset. I think you have to have a growth mindset to be able to continue to develop your skill, which again is what I admire so much about you, because you are willing to come in and ask a bunch of questions. And maybe people are thinking, why does he want to know so much? But you're okay kind of driving through that discomfort, which I think makes a huge difference, and surrounding yourself with people that are ahead of you, because that is how you get better. But in terms of like how we develop the content, it's just my brain.
That's good.
Just my brain. No, I mean, I think, look, it's not just me, right? We have a team of people who I work with. And, I think that we will sit down and kind of go through like, okay, what are people struggling with? And what are the biggest challenges? And, it's funny, as much as this business has changed and the tools have changed and the technology has changed, the fundamentals haven't really changed. And so a lot of the problems that we're struggling with, or that, agents are struggling with today, are the same problems we had 10 years ago. And so the nature of the business itself isn't that different. And really a lot of like how I put the program together is sort of, you get all of our managers in a room, and you say, okay, what do you think that the people in this level need to get to the next level? And you spitball everything. And then from there, you figure out who that would be really awesome at delivering content. Sometimes I deliver it. Sometimes the CEO delivers it. Sometimes one of the other managers delivers it.
I mean, I think it's great as a solo agent and not having a team yet, is like, when you have a roadmap, it helps you just kind of, all right, just keep treading along, like just keep doing the stuff. But then it doesn't really click until you start seeing the result, or any kind of result that's like, oh, I did this, 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 and this. And then, that and that happened over time. How do you navigate that with somebody who hasn't seen the result and just keeps doing the work, and like it hasn't just clicked yet until it does?
Yeah, I mean, I put them in front of other people that are going through the same. I mean, the nice thing about having 1,500 people is that no one's going through something alone. Like, based on where you are and what you're trying to accomplish, I can introduce you to 5 other people that are in the same spot you're in, and that creates a little community for you. And so I leverage, other members of the sales team to sort of help, individuals based on where their needs are. But again, a lot of it is just faith. A lot of it is them just knowing that if they trust me, they're going to get there. And sometimes it wavers. Sometimes, the market ebbs and flows. And again, I've been doing this for long enough that I can sort of paint them the picture of what they can expect. And normally that is what happens. If someone comes in and they say to me, like, I'm going to take the summer off and spend it with my kids, I'm like, no problem. You're going to have a slow fall. They're like, no, I'm good. I got lots in the pipe. It's going to be fine. I'm like, okay, it's totally cool. Like, that's the best part about this business. You control your own schedule. But it's going to take you 30 to 60 days to kind of ramp it back up again. And by then, those leads are going to generate are going to be for Q1 of the next year. So it's okay if you, and then inevitably they take the summer off and then they come in November and they're like, yeah, it's Lana. And they're like, I know you told me. And I'm like, I'm not going to say I told you so, but we know enough about the business to understand how it ebbs and flows. And so a lot of times it's social proof. A lot of times it's talking to other people. And a lot of times they kind of know I know.
So you have this thing about a connectivity plan, and I'm going to bring it up.
Thank you. It's my favorite thing to talk about.
Words, the connectivity plan. But so you just mentioned it, like what you're doing today you won't see anything, until a couple of months down the line. And even that's from a lead perspective,
Yes.
So what is this element of working with your database and connecting with them or just with anybody? And what does that look like for new agents? Like, is this where you start, or is this for seasoned agents, or who is this for?
Yeah. So the connectivity plan is this concept that the real estate business is like a roller coaster, right? Most people, they start trying to generate some leads, and then they get a bunch of leads, and then they have to service them. So they have to take the client on showings. And if they have a listing, they have to host open houses, and then they negotiate the offers and they get through the conditional period. And if they've done it right, they kind of wrap those clients up and they hopefully have some money in their pocket. But if they've been busy working with the client, they haven't been prospecting, which means they get to the bottom of the roller coaster and they start prospecting again, and they've got to generate those leads, work with the leads, get them to close. And so the idea of the connectivity plan is that you prospect all the way through while you're working with clients so that it's not quite as clumpy or as roller coastery. And so the connectivity plan is this tool that you should be using at any stage in your career. It evolves as your experience level grows, as your budget grows. But the idea of the connectivity plan is you take one item of value, one thing that you deliver to your database in 3 different ways. So in January, for example, Royal LePage Signature produces a Happy New Year market outlook. And so you can take that market outlook and you can mail it out to your clients. You can email it out. You can do a bomb video on it. You can post it on social. You can call people after you've sent it and say, did you see the report? Do you have some questions? And so it's one thing delivered 3 different ways. And again, if you can sort of have a focus every month, that connectivity piece you're focused on, it hopefully allows you to be more consistent in your prospecting efforts. And so you have one thing every single month. When you're new, a lot of your things may be lower in cost or budget if you don't have the marketing budget. And it might be a lot of things if you're at Signature that we're already providing to you. So we provide a tremendous amount of content and ideas and samples, and I've created the whole plan for you, depending on where you are in career stage. And that really should allow you to develop a repeat referral style business, which is how we all want to work to develop your career. For you, as you're working through your experience level, and again, you have made it into the highest level we offer here at Signature, which is the leaders group. At the start of your 3rd year. So, kudos, my friend, kudos. Your plan's going to evolve because now you have a little bit more of a budget. So we kind of weave in things like client events or, activities or, pop buys, little unexpected surprises for folks. And, your budget increases a little bit as your experience level grows and you're able to deliver different things, but it's still one thing delivered 3 different ways, regardless of how experienced you are. And that allows your database to see you, or your contacts of people to see you in a way that is experienced, knowledgeable, personable, relevant. They get to know you better. They trust you more. Again, going back to that trust factor. And that allows them to know that if they're going to refer, their Aunt Karen to you, that you're not going to muck up the deal. And then at Thanksgiving, they're going to have to listen to Aunt Karen complain about the realtor they referred them to. And so that's, sort of the idea behind the connectivity plan. And you've done a great job at proving the model.
Like, it gives you a reason to connect with people. And that's the whole point. Is where do you see the market heading this year?
So currently right now, we're at the end of April. We traditionally see more inventory coming on the market at this point in time. This is usually the start of the traditional spring market. Of course, when we say more inventory, it's never like loads and loads. And currently right now in the GTA, there's less than 2 months of inventory. And that's incredibly low given the size of our city. And so I think that you're going to continue to see buyer interest because, of course, when the Bank of Canada holds those rates now for the second time in a row, I think that allows buyers to go, okay, everything's going to be okay. I can get into the market now. And so when you're in a low inventory environment, you can, of course, expect upward pressure on prices. So I think we're going to continue to see upward pressure on prices. I think we're going to continue to see low inventory. I do wonder if it's going to be a little busier through the summer. There's been a few times in the last decade where we've had a very slow start to the year. We had one year, I can't remember exactly what year it was. I was trying to remember today, actually, where we had a horrible winter. It might have been 2014 or 2015. And the first 3 months of the year, it was like ice storm after this, after that, after this. And it felt like the market didn't really get going until the end of March, beginning of April. And then it was busy throughout the whole summer. And I wonder if this year is going to mimic that a little bit, where because it's, we've been in, 40 to 50% reduced unit volume environment since October or September of last year. I wonder if now it's just going to continue to be busy and follow a bit more of a non-traditional sense of the market. That's my prediction. I think you're going to continue to see upward pressure on prices, continue to see low inventory, and I think it'll be busier than normal through the summer months.
You think it's relative to the weather that we've been having? Because it's
I hope
cold
so.
again, right?
I hope so. Yeah, I hope so. I mean, it's sunny today.
Two more questions. So I have a couple hockey player buddies who are, thinking of real estate as a career after retiring. Where do they start? So these guys are, similar to myself, older.
I'll take them.
Mid-30s. Okay, you'll take them. That's number one. Where do they start? Do you recommend going on a team? Do you recommend going at it yourself?
Yeah, so I think that if you are someone who grew up in the city, or you have enough contacts that you can kind of start in a warm marketing capacity with people that sort of already know you and they like you. We just need to develop the trust aspect of the business. I typically suggest they start on their own. I don't normally suggest team. If you are someone who doesn't have a large warm network to start with, if you're new to the city, new to the country, those are the opportunities I might suggest you go onto a team and get some experience and sort of, help build your database in that capacity. I think that for anyone starting, and I'm not just saying this because I believe in what we do so highly, but I think for anyone starting, I think the start of the conversation is, again, finding a brokerage you feel aligned with. And if you've got to interview half a dozen, go interview half a dozen and really make sure you have clarity on what they offer from a training perspective, how they're going to help you grow your business, how they're going to help you get from A to B, how available they are, if they have the right mindset, if they have the same aligned values as you. That really is the start, because to your point, you really are who you're surrounded by. And so I've been in many real estate brokerages where you walk in and there's no one there. There's a receptionist and it's here. I mean, I came in here this morning and it was so loud. I was like, can you guys stop? So loud? Like someone was talking about a listing they were offering on last night and everyone was jumping in on what they thought of the pricing. And it's a real kind of vibe here. And so I think for your hockey buddies, you got to be in the right environment. That's number one.
And even as a player, like when you're going through that journey and if you have a good year and you have a couple different contract options, things like that, it's like, okay, well, this team or this place or this coach or this opportunity in this environment looks a lot different than that one. And it's super important to do your research and interview people and see who you get a good vibe from and see where you're going to be the best fit. Because if you're the best fit, then after 6 months, you're not going to be like, all right, I got to do this all over again.
Exactly.
Right? And kind of like pick everything up and go. Last question. If you could give any advice to yourself, you said you got into the business at 21?
21.
What would be that advice if you could go back and give yourself advice at 21 years old?
Yeah, I think that for sure for me, it would be to be more confident in your ability. At the time, I was very young and I was very worried about making a mistake. Who's going to trust me? How are they going to know I know what I'm doing? The industry, again, was very different. The average age of a realtor was much higher then than it is now. I think I would tell myself to be more confident in your capability and in your skill set, because once I developed that confidence, everything just clicked into place. I didn't arguably have any more knowledge. I just felt better at opening discussions, having dialogues, giving advice, sharing my opinion, and things just started happening for me. And so I think that's the hardest thing about being new, is that lack of confidence and really feeling like you know what you're doing and what you're talking about. But I would tell myself, just be more confident from the get-go. You're going to be fine.
Awesome. I love it. Thank you, Sam, so much. This was
Thanks
awesome.
for having me.
First in person.
First in person.
Hopefully many more.